I have to say I recommend retiring from executive employment. One can make exercise a priority in one's agenda, and however busy you are, you can make sure you put aside, I believe, an hour a day to exercise.
Yes.
In the same way, if one's traveling, I believe that if you actually think about it, you can put 2 hours aside in most destinations to go and see something or do something that is of interest.
In fact, I don't have time for you. That means you're not a priority to me. Same for exercise. And the second thing is, one thing that I don't think people talk about enough, and you've just reminded me, is that
the dangerous thing is that one very quickly finds oneself booking up time, filling in the calendar, and I found myself actually not being at home in Hong Kong any more than I was when I was working.
James, so good to see you again. It's been far too long since we caught up in person, and I think the texture of the in-person conversations I think are so much better. So I'm really happy you could make some time for me. Sorry for not sending you the address earlier. So just for context, I had James running around outside, wondering where the studio was. So faux pas.
It's great to see you up in Hong Kong, and very kind of you to pay us a visit after abandoning the territory.
I did abandon you for Singapore. Very
We may have you
original
back.
move. You may yet have me back, so we'll see. Luckily for me, obviously I'm back once a month at least for work, which is fantastic, and really happy I got the chance to catch up with you, because it's been a bit like Catch Me If You Can. You've been on a plane here, there, and everywhere. You've been on some amazing adventures in the last kind of 6 months. I know we didn't intend to start here, but I'd love to hear a bit about where you've been and maybe just some of your favorite places that you visited.
Well, I have to say I recommend retiring from executive employment.
Highly
At the same
recommended.
time as probably talk about, one wants to have things to keep one engaged, but the last 18 months have enabled me to travel a reasonable amount. Got a lot more places on the bucket list I'd like to get to, but I've just come back last month, came back from 2.5, 3 months in America, primarily in South America. So came through Vancouver for a week, couple of weeks in Costa Rica, 3 weeks in Brazil, and then most sort of interestingly, enjoyably, and strenuously, 3 weeks in Venezuela, which is not on everyone's travel list, but we had a wonderful time there.
Amazing. So tell me about Venezuela. Like, you're deep in the rainforest. I saw some waterfalls. I saw all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, well, actually, not rainforest. It was in the jungle of Venezuela, but in the central jungle, savanna territory.
Okay.
If you think to The Lost World, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, this concept of an area of land that is totally segregated from the rest of the world. So the Antipoi in central Venezuela are raised plateaus, about 1,000 meters vertically up, that are unconnected to the savannas and jungle below. And what we did was hike for about 10 days to go around this Antipoi up what's called El Libertador, which is effectively a cliff face across the plateau at the top, and then abseil down beside the Angel Falls, which are about 1,000 meters high.
Wow.
So that took about 13 days in total, because we started from close to the bottom of the falls, had to go all the way around the Antipoi in order. There's one route up.
Okay.
The Angel Falls, you would have thought were named after the angels above. Jimmy Angel crashed his plane on the Antipoi sometime many years ago, and then found himself on the top, and no one had ever been up there, so had to find a way down. And he found this one route down through a crag that enabled him to descend the sheer cliffs. And that's the route one takes to get up, which is on the opposite side of the plateau from the falls. So we made our way round, climbed up, and that was actually the sketchy bit of it. The abseil, 1,000 meters, it sounds pretty extreme, and you're just floating in the air 1,000 meters up as you descend in a series of abseils, and slept one night on the cliff on the way down. But it was going up, actually, particularly for someone of limited vision like me, with my assistant traveling with me, that we literally found ourselves halfway up a cliff on a ledge 6 inches wide, with my assistant Hayes saying to me, reach to your left, up a bit, there's a grit, and the 200-foot drop, sheer drop below. And I was thinking, should I really be here? But
I was wondering the same thing.
There's no real way down once you go there. So we were there with 3 young Venezuelan friends and a Frenchman. There were 6 of us doing it. And I think we were only the 4th or 5th grouping up there this year. So it's not frequented. much. Venezuela is not a popular tourist destination. We had a guide, we had an abseil specialist, and then 6, 7 indigenous tribesmen carrying the ropes, because you have to take your ropes with you. So we had 300-meter ropes, tents, cooking equipment, and then otherwise, other than me, everyone carried their pack. Hayes was the next oldest after me. So there was yours truly, and everyone else was in their 20s or early 30s. So I thought probably best not to carry my own pack if I'm going to keep up with them.
If you've been enjoying the podcast and you're finding my channel valuable, can I please ask you a very quick favor? Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on audio, please just take 2 seconds to hit subscribe. When you do that, you help me grow the show, you keep the wheels turning, and enable me to get bigger and better guests. Thank you. I think
But it was fun.
No, it looked amazing. I think you already bit off more than you can chew, and you succeeded. Because I'm looking at some of the photos on Instagram and thinking, geez, like it was pouring with rain as well, I think. Was it not?
Well,
Or
it
was it-
did
or it had
latterly,
been.
and
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
it's extraordinary because when we got to the bottom,
Yeah.
the Angel Falls can be relatively modest in volume of water. When we got to the bottom, the river emerging from the falls was only about 5 meters wide. It was small. That night, the heavens opened, and when we woke in the morning, the river had extended to about 100 meters width.
Crazy.
And it was a torrent, a raging torrent, because on the platform, the plateau, it's bog and jungle and ravines. And when it rains heavily, the water level in the bog rises, and then it just has to flow off the plateau. There's nowhere to go. And so it just comes over the Angel Falls.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's numerous things there. Jimmy Angel, did not know that. So it's a good pub quiz question. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket. 2, for those of you, for those out there watching and listening who don't know you, of course, your eyesight's compromised. And I can't believe you did this. Like, it's incredible. You've thrown yourself into it. And number 3, Venezuela. Why are not more people going there? Like, you've spent some great time there now.
There are good
Just the
reasons
sheer
for it.
difficulty of
Yeah, I mean,
access,
there are
primarily.
very good
right?
reasons for it in terms of political situation and the governance. But I suppose I've always believed in engaging with countries and their people. It's a place where very few people travel. There are very few flights in. It's extraordinary as a country because I think its oil reserves are greater than Saudi Arabia's.
Okay.
So it's incredibly wealthy in natural resources, but one way or another through governance and political leadership or lack of leadership, and it's not advanced. It's gone back a long way in the last 25 years. And as a result, people don't travel there, people aren't engaging there, and the people of Venezuela are being left to stew in the political morass that they're experiencing. And that's a deterrent to a lot of people. It has also been a dangerous place to visit. Caracas, I know, has been a very dangerous city to be in. Today, certainly, it seems to be a lot less so, and the situation's improved significantly over the last 5 years. But we were anyway spending most of our time in the savannah and in the jungle, not in the city. So we had 3 days in Caracas, which were fun and enjoyable, and we walked around pretty freely and enjoyed the place. But really the purpose of going there was to get out into the jungle and up the Antipui.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to go. I kind of lived it vicariously, I guess, through social media, but it was like a fantastic trip. And I guess the main point, unemployment, highly recommended.
Yes.
Or retirement. Because
I think it was great to break away. I mean, I had started work 1 month after my 21st birthday. And I think between that time and when I stepped down, which was 41 years or so, I think I'd had 3-week holidays many years, but I'd never had more than a 3-week break. So I'd never had a break between periods of employment. So actually to be able to step back and have time where one could determine one's own calendar totally was wonderful, and be able to travel freely. The dangerous thing is that one very quickly finds oneself booking up time, filling in the calendar. And I found myself actually not being at home in Hong Kong any more than I was when I was working. And in the last 3-4 years of working, I was probably in Hong Kong only about 25% of the year. So one aim is to actually be in Hong Kong a little bit longer. This is home. It's where I love living, and I'm very fortunate to be living beside the sea, overlooking Cape D'Aguilar, a beautiful sort of natural rural outlook, swimming in the sea every day. And to be at home is wonderful. But I do love traveling.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for work, obviously, as group chief executive of the Mandarin Oriental, you have to travel a lot, but quite often it's in and out, isn't it? And you don't necessarily get to embed yourself for weeks at a time in a certain place.
Well, that's where I think I
Yeah.
perhaps was quite fortunate, because during the pandemic, I took the view that there was no point in being locked into Hong Kong when the very stiff quarantine restrictions were in place.
That's true.
So I got out of Hong Kong and traveled extensively for 2 years, basically.
Yeah.
And in doing that, it then became apparent, as technology improved, that I no longer needed to spend 1 day in this hotel and 2 in the next. I could spend a week in each as I moved around. I had more time to talk to colleagues, see people in the properties, and used each of them as my office instead of the head office in Hong Kong. So slightly slower pace of travel and enabled me, therefore, to do more and see more in the destinations I was going to.
Yeah.
I've actually always believed as well that as businessmen, as travelers, it's a bit of an excuse, the in and out, rather, as you often hear people say, oh, I don't have time to exercise. To which I say, really?
Yeah.
It's about priorities. One can make exercise a priority in one's agenda, and however busy you are, you can make sure you put aside, I believe, an hour a day to exercise.
Yeah.
In the same way, if one's traveling, I believe that if you actually think about it, you can put 2 hours aside in most destinations to go and see something or do something that is of interest.
Yes.
So whether it's being in Taipei and visiting the National Museum, or Beijing and going to briefly the Forbidden City or Temple of Heavenly Pleasure, or a particular location, destination, seeing a particular building, visiting a particular street or part of the city, there's always time to do it if you make the effort to think about it a little. And I certainly, in the latter years of my career, became more focused on that, and therefore trying to make sure I could see things and do things. What's less easy is to go to the destinations that work doesn't take one.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 2 points there. I think you're absolutely right. When someone says I don't have time, it just means it's not a priority to me, right? If I don't have time for you, that means you're not a priority to me. Same for exercise. And the second thing is, one thing that I don't think people talk about enough, and you've just reminded me, is that there was a COVID dividend. There was a COVID dividend. It allowed you and afforded you time and space in some regards to do things like that, to stay in a hotel and embed yourself and do things remotely. And it kind of forced a lot of people to slow down as well, right? I think you can take COVID as net a terrible thing, or you can say net, I actually took some silver lining, I took some lessons, and I changed the way I moved through the world because of it. And keeping that COVID dividend is valuable.
I think it was too. I mean,
right?
For some people, it was obviously very painful because it left them very
I don't want to diminish that.
Without any social connection and great worry. But for some people who, you could almost say, over-socialize and rush around over busily and are constantly rushing from pillar to post, it actually meant they had to slow down and were given time that they would otherwise have been socializing to just do things a little more calmly, or take up activities or hobbies that they might otherwise not have considered.
Yeah. Well, I know how much you love Hong Kong. It's kind of deeply ingrained in your DNA and your psyche. And it's funny, no matter where you go in the world, and you've been to some beautiful places, you know, not just recently, but over the years, still the view from your house on the south side of Hong Kong is kind of unmatched. And I think people, if they're watching and listening from overseas, you wouldn't think that that level of natural beauty would exist in a city, I'm doing air commas, you know, a city like Hong Kong, right? It's stunning.
But it is the ability
class,
to have
right?
such a beautiful beach and outlook 20 minutes from the very heart of the city is quite remarkable.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a great neck of the woods, right? In terms of kind of the, you know, last time you and I were together in this format, you know, on the podcast, it was the midst of COVID, right? It was 2020, 2021. You stepped down as chief exec in 2023 from the Mandarin Oriental. You've had some time, some space to reflect. Are you seeing the world differently? Have you kind of absorbed some lessons since then that you think, yeah, you know what, looking back, I'm proud of this, or I'm not proud of that. This was a good use of my time. I don't think this is a good use of my talents, because you've got plans. You've already taken on several positions, which we'll talk about. But are you seeing the world differently now than when we last kind of did a podcast together?
I am differently, but not in the sense of looking back. So if I'm honest, I mean, if asked to I can reflect on lessons of leadership and the like,
Yeah, we can.
but I'm not spending my time thinking about what did I do well and what did I not do well, because my whole outlook tends to be on thinking about the future. What am I going to do? What is going to being achieved by businesses I'm involved with, and looking forward, rather than sitting back and reflecting on a career. I mean, I'm glad essentially that I'm done with executive employment. I've been lucky enough to do okay. And now I'm looking to spend time working with people, advising, consulting I sort of use with hesitation because I don't want to be sitting writing reports, but engaging in interesting businesses, brands with opportunities for the future. And whether they're established businesses or ones that are new and fresh and starting up, driven by youngsters, I combine with both. But so I am very much looking forward to putting together a portfolio of interests that engage me, keep me pretty busy, but also give me the freedom to be able to travel and see parts of the world that I haven't been to.
Which you deserve, right? I mean, you've worked hard for a long time, and we all work and no play makes James a dull boy.
But
Is
it
that not?
depends. But it depends what play means to people. I mean, a lot of people retire, and what they really want to be doing is being at home, playing golf, going out sailing in their boat, and doing things that keep them very much at home. I find myself permanently with friends that I've made over the years in different parts of the world. I love visiting them, going to see them, and I enjoy going to see new places. So, I mean, I've got 3 or 4 sort of smaller trips, not adventurous ones at the moment, lined up for the next 3 or 4 months, just to places to go that I haven't been and I would like to go. And then I'm beginning to think about what could or would be interesting to do in 2026 by way of a slightly bigger or longer trip or expedition.
Okay. Good. I mean, let's talk about something, because you have always been, since I've known you, always future facing and looking forward rather than back. Some of those opportunities that you've seen and you're enjoying spending more time on. Maybe you talk about the Oberoi first. I know you just joined the board of Oberoi. Tell me how that came about and what you hope to contribute there.
I mean, it's
a great brand.
It's a great brand and a wonderful company with a great ethic, an ethic for service and really high quality hospitality. So when I was at Mandarin, I got to know the Oberoi family and the Oberoi business and felt that it was a great match with Mandarin. Mandarin had no presence in India. Oberoi is primarily, majority of its operations are in India. And so I felt it was a great match. So we formed an alliance between the companies during the pandemic, which was a difficult time to take such an idea forward. And as a result, I got to know Oberoi reasonably well. Roll on to when I finished at Mandarin, I went to visit Oberoi's, and they very kindly, flatteringly asked whether I'd like to join and become a non-executive director. It takes quite a long time to go through the process to be inducted in India as a non-resident of India. So that process is through, and actually I'm just commencing the process next week of I went on the board a couple of months ago, and first board meeting next week. And I'm very much looking forward to engaging and then seeing how I work as a non-exec. I was a non-exec at HSBC for 5 years at Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. And I must admit, I enjoyed that enormously, but I do take the view as a non-exec that it's fine to turn up to board meetings once every 2 months or once a quarter and do little bits like that. But I actually prefer it if there's a chance to engage a little bit more with staff, with colleagues, and get to know the business a bit better and see whether one can add value without interfering to the direction and performance of the business, which I believe is what a non-exec should be doing. So I think in that sense, it will be fun to meet people in Oberoi, engage, see how different it is to Mandarin Oriental, which is a business I'm much more familiar with, and see whether there are things I can bring that will be helpful to them strategically, operationally, etc. I hope so, but let's see.
I have no doubt you will. Yeah, I have no doubt you will. Clearly, they've taken you on for a reason. Look, it's going to be really interesting, I think, to get your, sink your teeth into it and see, you know, behind the scenes what's actually going on, see what the differences are and where you can add value, right?
But it's important to remember as a non-exec that one is a non-exec.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the dangers that some people encounter having been an executive, that they start to interfere or embroil themselves too deeply.
Okay.
One is a non-executive. One is not there to run the business. There are other people who have that as their full-time role.
Yeah.
And one has to remember that at the same time.
Yeah. No, I have zero doubt you'll add some wisdom and insight. And but yeah, it's funny. It's one of those situations where the clue is in the name, right? Non-exec director, right? So know your role, but definitely contribute because they brought you in for a reason. So
yes.
Yeah. Where's kind of the first pit stop? Do you have one in mind for Oberoi in terms of their signature properties?
Will be to begin in Delhi, the heart, and see some of their properties there, and get to meet some of the senior executive team, some of whom I know already, and some of whom I do not. So familiarize myself with the people, their training school, and their operations. Need to be careful also not just to swan around their beautiful hotels all around India and have one long permanent holiday.
Yeah. Just cups of tea in different hotels.
Exactly.
Is there a particular angle where you think, you know what, without being self-aggrandizing, you know, they brought you in for a reason, like, I can add some value here? Do you
well, I should probably
I will enjoy
not take the bait on that one, only because I need to visit them, see them, and see and understand their agenda a bit better before I have the pomposity to start making comments about things I can contribute.
Yeah. Well, no, you have to get to know the people first. I know you will do that very well. Can we let's just talk a little bit about some of the other, maybe smaller, Oberoi's massive, so some of the smaller companies you've invested in time and money, right? Because I know you're working with some smaller VC funds.
I've been a keen, I suppose, angel investor is the term, for quite a time in a variety of businesses, in my modest way. And now I've got a little bit more time. I've been pleased to find that with a number of them, I've been able to step up a little bit the contribution, not merely investing, but actually engaging with them, becoming a director or in a few cases, chairman, to help guide the leaders, the founders of those businesses as they seek to grow. Not all of them will work, but hopefully some of them will.
We only need one.
And all of them are in areas and businesses that I find engaging and interesting. They're primarily consumer brands, consumer orientated, which is an area I'm more familiar with. I mean, my background obviously is as a investment banker and a finance person, so I can do the numbers. I like to use technology. I'm not a technology expert. So when looking to invest, I've tended to find that when I look at technology businesses, I love the idea and the concept, but I also find myself thinking, how do I know whether this is a really unique opportunity or are there 100 other people doing the same thing and actually they're all in a direction and 99 are going to crash and burn. My ability to discern who's got a unique or a rare positioning, I feel, is less good. So I've tended to focus on consumer-orientated businesses and look quite widely in terms of the spectrum. So there's a mixture that I'm spending time on. I mean, one that I particularly enjoy at the moment is a sparkling tea business, so a very premium, high-end sparkling tea business called Sideshow.
And that's made in Hong Kong, is it? Where's it manufactured?
It's made in England, actually, but it's the founders, one is from Hong Kong, a husband and wife team, and one is from England. The primary markets have been London and Hong Kong, now Dubai, and will be 2 or 3 other key financial centers. And it's been very successful so far in doubling turnover each year, being positioned in luxury hotels, Michelin-starred restaurants, premium retail outlets. And so it's proving a very strong premium position product that fills, I think, an ever-expanding space of non-alcoholic beverages. It's a drink that fills that gap. If you think about a nice lunch that one goes out for instance, or a celebratory occasion, but let's take a nice lunch, and you're offered still or sparkling, sir? Still, thank you. Would you like the wine list, madam? No, I don't think we'll drink today. So what do you then drink with the food? You can have sodas, but I'm not sure Coke and 7-Up and things go well
I think people
with a
are,
meal.
yeah.
You can have fruit juice, but again, it doesn't really complement food particularly well. You can have kombucha. There are non-alcoholic beers and wines. Beers are coming along. I'm not sure they quite cut it most of the time. The sparkling tea is a great product. The Chinese and Japanese have obviously seen this in drinking tea with their meal for centuries. And actually, with an edge of sweetening, carbonated and chilled, it makes a wonderfully celebratory product, but also one where the flavors and tastes of very fine teas can complement the finest cuisine magnificently. And I think it's got a really rare opportunity to become a significantly positioned premium non-alcoholic drink as opposed to a run-of-the-mill non-alcoholic drink. So it's exciting. You can tell.
Every single day, I watch smart and otherwise successful people struggle to communicate their value. They have the expertise, but they're not brilliant speakers. And they lack the technique, they lack the gravitas to deliver their ideas with impact. They don't know how to speak in a way that makes people listen. The good news is that the principles and techniques of effective public speaking can be taught, they can be learned. And the truth is most working professionals, many senior executives, are probably operating at 7 out of 10 in terms of their communication potential. You are talented, you are hardworking, you're good at what you do. But if you're honest, you know deep down that you're leaving money and opportunities on the table every time you're asked to present to an audience. Now, my approach isn't about making someone you're not. It's about accessing the best version of yourself when it matters most. And what I'm good at is helping people find the emotional center, find the central truth of their message. I help them find their narrative, one that will resonate with their audience. I help busy executives and entrepreneurs just like you compress years into weeks. I pull your future forward so that you can start holding the attention of your audience today. Do not let another great idea die unspoken. Do not let another opportunity pass you by because you couldn't find the right words at the right time. Your voice matters. Your ideas deserve to be heard. Let me be the one to make sure that's the case. Click the link or visit my website and submit an inquiry. Let's unlock the confident communicator you were always meant to be.
No, I love it.
Quite like
I love it. Your whole body just
love
lifted as you spoke about it, which is great. I think, as an investor, obviously you have emotional skin in the game as well, not just financial skin in the game, right? Which is nice to see. And I think the premium positioning is very important, as you say. The celebratory aspect without kind of the alcohol is also another component because, me and my experience in the alcohol industry, it's a fact. It's a brutal fact for someone like me who is a co-owner of a sake business. More people are deciding not to drink. That's just the way the world is moving. They're much more health conscious. So what fills the gap? That non-alcoholic segment is growing year on year, and it's the only segment that's growing rapidly.
So that's one that I get quite excited about. Another different one, but on the theme of travel, is a business called VoiceMap, which is GPS guided tours. It's about, at the moment, we're up to about 1,500 guided tours where one downloads from the app a tour in Barcelona, in central Hong Kong, wherever, and then gets a guide taking one on a walk, or it can indeed be a cycle or a drive, but usually a walk through an area where effectively you've got the guide with you. Wonderful guides, professional and amateur, really know their stuff, able to take you at your own pace because you can stop, you can start. And from my experience, both within hotels and over the years with a family, you book a guide in a regular sense and, Dad, do we have to? I want to go swimming.
Yeah.
Can we get it tomorrow? Or it's pouring with rain and you booked a guide for 3 hours. Or, I hope it doesn't happen too often, but you start the tour and you think, oh God, why did we do this?
Yeah. They sent the B team today.
There's so many reasons why actually being able to download a tour for $10 or $12 and walk around an area and understanding more about it, being able to stop for a cup of coffee, stop for lunch, finish it off tomorrow, just gives a great deal more flexibility. And the only thing you can't do is ask questions. So I'm again, found it a really valuable travel tool, which I use a lot, and met some very interesting people who are now doing some of these tours. And that I find quite exciting as it's built. So we're looking to build on that a little bit and potentially, Michael, I hate to say it, do a bit of a travel podcast to go with it. So
don't say it.
We'll see where we go.
It'll be good. I love the idea of VoiceMap. I think it's great. So you've built obviously a native app Yeah, I don't
It's
have
an
the app.
app.
Yeah,
It's
you've
an
got
app
build native apps.
which one will find on the
Yeah.
in the App Store, just
Yeah.
called VoiceMap.
Yeah.
And once you download that app, then you can gain access
Mm-hmm.
to any of the. I think it's about 1,500 tours at the moment,
Yeah.
and growing at about 300 or 400 a year. So
Amazing.
rapidly expanding, which is great.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had that sheer volume of tours. 1,500. That's a lot.
And it's particularly strong in the leisure centre of the world in some ways, which is Europe,
Yep.
where there's an enormous amount to do in cities, in towns, in areas. But it is more broadly placed. It's got quite a lot in the United States and in other parts of the world. So it's growing.
Yeah, no, I love it for all the reasons you listed. Actually, when you think about it, there's a number of reasons where it can go wrong and you can get tripped up by booking a traditional tour. Sometimes it goes fantastically well, of course, but the thing with the app is that you're not limited by geography or availability or who's around. You can get best in class, right? Whoever is best in class knows this city inside out. They're on the app, right?
And actually, the interesting thing is for the guides themselves, it's an opportunity because obviously they go out and do tours and hopefully get reasonably paid for them.
Yeah.
But they actually have to go and do each tour to gain revenue.
Yeah.
If they create these tours and can create 5 or 6 in a city, then they're able to make money in their sleep.
Yeah,
because people can download, gain the benefit of their wisdom and knowledge of the city without having to drag them through the pouring rain around the city or the burning sun or whatever it is. And therefore it gives them an alternative revenue source, which then introduces people to them as a guide and may then prompt them to step up and pay the higher price that's necessary to book an exclusive guide.
Yeah, that's it, right? Excuse me, I've hit the mic. It democratizes both sides of the equation, right? The tour guides themselves, anyone, right? Presumably the best guide wins, right? They get on. And then also it's only $10 or $12 or whatever it is, $15. Some people cannot afford a $200 tour, 500, whatever it is. So it democratizes both sides, which I think is really nice.
I think it works well. And as it evolves and develops, I think it's going to become very successful.
Cool. I love that.
And then a different theme, I'm going to do one more, but just to sort of range, is I've always been quite passionate on sustainability in various forms. At Mandarin, I did initiate a number of changes, the approach we took to sustainability with varied success, but I think some success. But I've become engaged with a food production, a food supply business here in Hong Kong that's looking essentially to reduce the carbon footprint and improve the sustainability credentials of the food supply chain, both here in Hong Kong, Singapore, and in Asia. And I found that quite exciting because I'm very conscious of the food supply chain here has a tendency, particularly for Western consumers, more affluent consumers, to have a very high carbon footprint as stuff is shipped in from Europe, from Japan, Australia, when we have within China a great food production base, but there's a lack of trust among many, and being able to establish a reliable food supply chain that is reliable, trustworthy, and of the highest quality, I think gives great potential and is the way we should be moving.
Yeah, I like that. You're right to highlight the trust component is huge, right? Because the provenance of your food, you're physically putting it in your body, as opposed to maybe, the moral component of I can buy an iPhone or whatever that's made in China and people can, whatever, they can deal with it, or a t-shirt. But when you're actually putting food, meat, vegetables, on your family's dinner plate, you have to have 100% trust that it's come from a reputable source.
So this is a business called Kin, focusing initially on eggs. Kin.
Okay.
Yes. Initially on eggs, but also on smoked trout, on shrimps, and a variety of other products are coming onto the shelves.
Okay, I like that. Are there any other companies that you're working with? Actually, let's go back to the podcast. You only soft plugged it. I want to know more. So,
well, I don't want to be jumping ahead too far. You've done a trial run, and I'm not sure it went very well. So
we've done
I need a little bit of work on that to improve my in front of the microphone performance as it's sitting in your seat rather than sitting in mine.
Well, it's funny, right? It is a different skill. I think some people are excellent guests, some people are excellent hosts, and they can't do the other one. You'll be fine, my friend. You'll be absolutely fine doing both sides of the mic. What's kind of the ideal guest, and who's the ideal listener, do you think, for VoiceMap, the podcast?
Well, I think the ideal guest is someone who comes from a wide variety of backgrounds with an interest in travel. And it is therefore to be talking to them about their travel experiences, how they came to travel, where they've traveled, how they travel, what their approach to travel is. The theme being travel, but people with other backgrounds. So one can both talk to people a little bit about their own background and then the role that travel has played in their life.
Yeah.
And there are quite a few travel podcasts out there, but I'm not sure at the moment that there are any or many that have really sweetly hit the nail on the head. So, or actually, there are various nails. So probably that's the wrong analogy. But I just think there's quite a lot of space there. And then in terms of the audience is broadly people who have an interest in travel, and whether they're not able to fulfill that interest very often, and therefore sitting in their armchair at home and giving them an opportunity to learn and listen is the point, or whether they're people who are traveling quite a lot and need some greater ideas and thoughts on where to travel and what to do. It can fulfill both of those. But so it's for regular people who love to travel, and it's for people who are interested in travel to listen to.
Yeah, I think you have to be somewhat masochistic to start a podcast because there is, you can look at the numbers objectively. There's millions of podcasts in the world, fact, right? But then actually there is this component, why the hell should I do it? How am I going to be meaningfully different? I'm not, But you're right. People will come if you can tell good stories, if you can find interesting people, and also give those actionable insights and tips, like this is how you're going to get the most out of this city. I think people will come. They will come because of those million podcasts. By the way, I think 99% of people give up before 5 episodes. So you're already in the top 1%. If you persist, I know you did one trial run, but if you can do 10 episodes, you're already in the top 1% or 0.5% of podcasts worldwide. And then just that consistency, it will drive people to the app.
And there is, in a sense, an extra rationale in that actually, as an adjunct to the VoiceMap app, it could be, if we do it well, and that's a big if, a valuable means of continuing to interact with users of the app and users of VoiceMap tours to ensure that one's continuing to engage between their occasional trips to different parts of the world. A lot of users of VoiceMap use it once or twice a year when they go on a 1 or 2 week trip, rather than using it weekly.
Yes.
I mean, another element that we're evolving with VoiceMap is actually there's something like 120 tours in London and over 260 in the UK. So actually getting a regular subscription base for people will also be an important element, I think, of developing the business. And if one's going to do that, one not only needs to produce regularly new tours, but you also want to engage through some form of regular brochure, and a podcast effectively achieves that as well.
Yeah, I think so. Like, that was going to be my question, was how, and again, we can go as deep or as shallow as we want with it, but the revenue model, how, if they're only engaging 1 or 2 times a year, you're right, you have to build an ecosystem that's sticky and people want to keep coming back, and the content is great for that. The subscription model could potentially achieve that. But me, I always like to think of the 3 C's. So you've got content, builds community, and that builds commerce, right? So you make great content.
The content is there,
and
the community is what you're
trying
need
to build
now, and that will lead to commerce. I mean,
then the dollars will
revenues and the business is working well already. It's an established business, so it works well. I mean, I've been banging on a little bit about needing to accelerate the rate of growth, because the danger always, if one grows at too modest a pace, is that a horse comes from the field behind and overtakes one. Therefore, one needs to build momentum in this world. Otherwise, what seems a good runner can fade.
Yeah, seen enough of those at the Jockey Club over the years. Do you think that, I don't know the answer to this, is VoiceMap first? Are they kind of the pioneer, or other people? I imagine there are other people trying to do similar things.
There are a lot of people who've tried it one way or another. They've had varied degrees of success. The key is that to build up the library or portfolio of different tours actually takes quite a lot of time. And AI is going to be interesting because it's going to ease building, creating new tours, but it still doesn't make it something that just happens automatically.
Yes.
So when I go traveling, I will very often use ChatGPT or something of that nature, and I'll be walking through Valencia and say, could you give me 1,000 words on the history, geography, economics, social, culinary, and political background to Valencia in the style of Niall Ferguson, eliminating any platitudes, superlatives, references to comparative popularity, and not using, and we'll go through something of that nature, try and get what I want. So that'll give me an interesting piece to listen to or read, but it still doesn't take me through the city to see the interesting things and tell the tales.
Yeah.
And actually creating that curated guided tour through a place where one's in a city and just wants to go for a stroll for an hour and a half. One can go for a stroll and not be interrupted, but how much more interesting is it, particularly if one's on one's own or just with one other person, to be able to listen to someone telling you as you pass buildings and pass down alleys about what happened there 100 years ago and what's the history to this particular painting on the wall, or this sort of area where there seems to be shrapnel marks on the wall, or whatever it is. And it can be done for so many places. They don't have to be the most important or popular tourist destinations, but it really works. So I'm sitting there and thinking, and I know creating one is more of a challenge, but for the village I live in Hong Kong, I've said to myself, I really ought to do a VoiceMap tour.
Absolutely.
But I've got to pull together the information and the background and the knowledge that will stand up to scrutiny to then do it. If I can do it, then it would be fun and interesting. And in a place like Hong Kong, actually, there's enormous amounts of material to be able to do it.
Enormous.
But then one needs to get the guides, the people, to be able to create the tours. And what they then create for posterity is, I suppose, published tours in a sense. They're not written published, but spoken published tours, which otherwise, when guides fade from the scene and move on to do other things or no longer active, their knowledge is broadly lost, because writing it down in book and pamphlet form has never really well translated well or lasted.
Yeah, certainly not to the travel tours. Yeah. I love that as a use case for ChatGPT, though, by the way. That was a great prompt. For entering a city. I'm using ChatGPT all wrong. I should be doing that. It's great.
I find it. I mean, there are so many ways of using it, but I do think it's a technology and advancement that will be massively empowering and liberating in a sense.
Yeah, but it's great. I think it's perfect. Like, give me a 1,000-word primer. You can listen on audio. Fascinating, gives you some context
and
to
gradually refine.
Yeah.
I mean, because I can't read anything and therefore books and pamphlets no use, it's great to be able to do that.
Yeah, but you're using the voice app, right, for ChatGPT? Yeah. No, it's a great use case. I really like it. But the thing is, there's so much information. We don't necessarily need more information. We need curation, right, which is what these tour guides are doing for you. So give me the primer and then just get me best in class curation.
Yeah. And that's what the tour guides do. As a tour, the ChatGPT will give one the background, and if one revises and revises again the actual instruction, one can then get what one wants. Initially, what one gets is a lot of things referring to widely regarded as the most interesting city in Spain, in which many people visit on regularly, and you just sort of said, this isn't telling me anything.
Yes.
But when you can get them to actually eliminate all of those platitudes and really non-contributory comments to focus on the facts, the information in the way you want it, then it becomes really valuable.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's got my mind whirring for new ideas. Well, is there anything else that I know you've got kind of your hands in different pies here with different companies that you've just listed and they're fascinating. Is there still a niche to dig into something more full time?
Yes, I mean, I've definitely got capacity at the moment, and it's interesting when one stops full time employment and ceases to be attending regular board meetings and as an executive and engaging in a sense in that executive way, particularly because I travel quite widely between East Asia, India, the Middle East, Europe, the UK in particular. The Americas generally less so, but still a little bit. One's not on then the executive
Radar.
radar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that actually 12 to 18 months of more time to travel has been a good thing. But there's definitely the capacity. I've got the capacity to do a little more. So it'll just be interesting over the next couple of years, I hope, to find a couple more bigger things to be committed to. I think one of the great things in the world now is that it's possible to do that without always having to be in location.
Yes.
Yes, one should be attending a majority of boards and committee meetings in person for sure. But the fact that one doesn't always need to, and that one can in fact always attend every meeting, even if a few of them are attended virtually, gives one much greater flexibility to be able to manage one's diary sensibly. And so, yes, I'd like to take on a couple more things. I've got one or two non-corporate things as well. I'm a trustee of a very interesting home in Scotland called Abbotsford, which was the home of perhaps one of the greatest writers in the English language, though often not read today, or not read as much today, Sir Walter Scott, who created a wonderful home. And that home was the model that Queen Victoria used for Balmoral. In some ways was at the very beginnings of the neo-Gothic style that was so widely used around the world. But he was also, in essence, the founder or the originator of historic fiction. And his books are wonderful tales and narratives set through the ages. They're more difficult to read today because they're written in sort of in Scots. They're written in English, but with Scotch accent in the speech, and that can make them more difficult to read. But wonderful tales, and the home itself is glorious. It was about 25 years ago, was rescued from sort of deterioration, has had significant investment put into it, and is now a great visitor attraction. So I became engaged with that, and particularly by a quirk, fascinated by it, because there turns out to be a date that seems to have recurring significance in my life. And this is going to sound to some listeners a really odd thing, but the company I worked for 30 something years was called Jardine Matheson, the owner of Mandarin Oriental, and that was founded in 1832. My university and yours, Durham University, was founded in 1832. My golf club, which is North Berwick in the Borders in Scotland, was founded in 1832. My favourite book is Les Miserables, and I think I'm right in saying the events in Les Miserables took place in 1832. I've been chairing the Royal Geographical Society here in Hong Kong for about 25 years. It was founded in 1830, so it's off by a couple of years.
How dare they?
But the connection is that Sir Walter Scott died in 1832. And from that year, and from that year till this, the house has been open to the public. So in all of those cases, those institutions, companies, organizations are coming up for their 200th anniversary, which I also find fascinating.
Love that.
But it's sort of a recurring year and theme in my mind.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. There is these numbers that just kind of, for whatever reason, and you can attribute it to whatever you want, but it's too hard to ignore. It just keeps recurring in one's life.
So
for me, it's 23.
You grasp onto it and say, actually, maybe I would like to do that. So that's been something I very much enjoyed. I enjoy his books and literature. It's a beautiful place.
Just ground it for me. Abbotsford House, exactly where is it
located? Abbotsford, it's in the Borders, so it's very close to Melrose and Selkirk. The Borders is the area between England and Scotland, just north of the border in Scotland. So south of Edinburgh, about 3/4 of an hour south of Edinburgh. You can take the train down from Edinburgh to Tweedbank at the end of the line, and it's about a 15-minute walk from the train station.
Love it. So you know what we need to do, James, right? So what we need to do is go on Google and get all the brands in the world that were founded in 1832. That's where your next gigs are going to come from. We can narrow the field very easily.
Sure, there aren't that many.
There won't be many.
Remarkable thing.
So we're going to narrow the field very, very quickly, and we're going to approach them all. You mentioned Durham. Obviously, both you and I went to Durham University, very fond of the place. We both studied geography there. What's your involvement with Durham these days? I think you've stepped it up, correct?
It's modest, my contribution, but I've been on the board, the fundraising board, which is a campaign called Durham Inspired, which has raised significant funds for the university over the last 5-10 years, with others making much greater contributions than me. But it's been quite a successful lift up in fundraising, which is something that the British and British academic institutions, university, have never been very good at. I think there's always been a certain reluctance to go out and raise funds in a way that American institutions are much better at.
They are.
But at least we're beginning to pick it up and make an impact, and also get those who've gone through some of the wonderful universities in the UK. And I think Durham is at the pinnacle of the wonderful universities in the UK.
Of course we would say that.
to contribute to the places that have played such an important part in their learning and development as individuals.
Let's face it, most corporate training workshops, they're dull, they're uninspiring. And the truth is, when working professionals see the words CPD or training booked in their calendar, their first feeling is not one of excitement, but of dread. As partner and head of corporate training at Quinlan & Associates, I've delivered workshops at family offices at some of the world's largest listed companies. Whether it's the art of communication, mindset, motivation, or building high-performance teams, I would love to be the one to help you deliver training that your people can actually look forward to and they will remember for a very long time. Click the link below or visit my website, michaelxcampion.com, or visit quinlanassociates.com to find out more.
Yeah, it's a very special place, and I regrettably have missed a lot of our alumni get-togethers, being in Singapore and not in Hong Kong, but I know that those are still ongoing, and everyone who goes there has such a strong affinity for the place, and you can't say that for every university or college. Like, people who go to Durham, they love it, they live it, and they always... I'm yet to meet someone who didn't find it deeply positive overall.
No, I mean, it's remarkable that in Hong Kong there are over 1,000 graduates of Durham.
Yeah.
And obviously they're very diverse in nature and type, and their experiences are very different.
Yeah.
But as you say, almost to a woman and to a man, they loved their time in Durham.
Yeah.
So it's a place that has a great legacy, a great history, and hopefully a great history in front of it.
Yeah. Well, apart from me going on to ChatGPT in a few minutes and finding all the brands that were founded in 1832, what's next? I've loved catching up with you. We're going to go have a drink and some dinner this evening.
Well, for me, I mean, one of the things...
What's next?
Well, one of the things, actually, it was funny, from when we last spoke, I never got allowed to forget the fact that you did mention my family and bring them up. And I then made a very flippant comment about that my children were grown up some of the time, and I think was the words I used. And I know my son at work certainly got teased quite a lot about that being the only reference he got at all.
Let's talk about them.
So, having retired, I live in Hong Kong and remain based in Hong Kong and love it here. My 3 children are all living and working in London in different professions and lines of work. But it does mean for me that it's also important to get back to the UK a reasonable amount. And I'm very excited. My eldest daughter is getting married this summer.
Amazing.
Using Abbotsford as the venue for the wedding, which is doubly exciting. So a beautiful location with a link and a connection in the borders. So that's one of the things going forward, is spending time with the kids when they have time for me. Once upon a time, it was Dad always, oh, no, I'm too busy. Probably, I fear. Now I recognize the boot is on the other foot and I have to beg, steal or borrow time. But fortunately, they still seem to enjoy engaging with the old man on their terms, which is just the way it should be.
Okay, so we've got weddings on the horizon.
I had a lovely week actually with my daughter traveling in the Balkans in September. We went to it was only a week, but we went to Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Croatia, driving around for 7 days, at which she did say to me, Dad, you know, it's exhausting traveling with you, because not only, she said, do I have to drive, but I have to find the restaurants and book the restaurants. I have to arrange the itinerary, and you're always asking questions about things, which I have to then find the answer. And I think it probably is true that whether it's her or my assistant, who I travel with a lot, I do have a tendency to constantly be asking questions and somehow expect answers to magically appear, which is where ChatGPT, the internet, etc., all come in very handy.
Yeah.
So
You're getting good at voice prompting now. Yeah.
That's one element. I mean, another thing which will be fun to do in the summer, I'm planning to do a couple of weeks driving through the Baltic. And when I say the Baltic states, I've never been to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So I thought it'd be rather fun to spend 14, 16 days driving through those three. It's not enough, anyone from those countries would say, to see each of them individually, let alone together. But I reckon 2 and a bit weeks would be fun in that area, visiting a place with great history, great contemporary relevance, and quite a dynamic population. I find it fascinating how those countries have evolved from relatively poor economic circumstances when they emerged from the Soviet Union, whatever it is now, almost 25, 30 years ago. What must it be? 35 years ago, 35 years ago, to a position where, you know, if their per capita income was probably about a third of the UK at that point, and now it's ahead of the UK. So they're countries that have really seen enormous economic growth and change and development, and yet I think preserved in many ways their own cultural identity and differences. So I'm hoping to have fun traveling around and experiencing that.
And who are you going to do that with? Will that be with the kids? You're going to nag them?
I'm seeing whether one of them will come along. I'll go with the lad who I travel with a lot, who keeps me in order and is my eyes and ears when we travel, Hayes, who I went to Venezuela with, so who will come for a couple of weeks, hopefully. Georgie sort of may come with me. My wife will come, I think, but she's quite busy in arranging wedding and things at the moment, and I reckon wedding plans are best made without me interfering.
Probably.
So I try and contribute where I can be useful.
And know where you want it, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's interesting you're going to spend some time there. I spent a little bit of time in Tallinn, in Estonia, when I was a young man, and I loved it.
What do you mean when you were a young man?
I mean, Christ, I'm
Last year,
40 now,
Mike.
you know? Someone called me an industry veteran the other day, and it cut me to my core. That hurt. That really hurt. That was the first time it's ever been said. The V word, veteran, was used in my presence. But Tallinn's it's stunning. I think it's just architecturally stunning. I thought it was a really interesting place, but I only spent, I think it was 72 hours, and not enough, not nearly enough. But
that's what I had a period. I mean, it still won't be more than 72 hours in somewhere like Tallinn, but actually covering that area and finding some of the best spots, seeing the countryside, should be good. Getting a bit of cold swimming in here and there.
Yeah, you do love a cold swim.
Well, it's one of the things I have got into the habit of, and some would say are nuts, finding different places to swim. The rivers of Venezuela were interesting as not only sources of water to drink, but swimming on each occasion, including the Angel Falls right at the top in the waters just before it goes down. But then I found myself last March, for instance, I was skiing in Switzerland, in Crans Montana, and we did swim each day in the lake up in Crans, even though it was half frozen and half not. Swimming maybe is overdoing it. Spending 2 or 3 minutes in it,
floating,
trying not to actually freeze up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are doing it nowadays. The kind of cold plunge, the cold swimming, ice baths and stuff. And I think they do it from the mental health angle, or maybe it's the physical health.
It is invigorating.
Right?
I mean, I do swim if I'm in Hong Kong every day. I mean,
you will just walk down on the rocks.
We've got the garden gate, down 30 steps and dive into the sea. And at the moment, it's quite cold. I think the sea temperature is about 15 degrees. And as one swimming with a head in the water, it's quite chilling. It's not freezing, but it's quite chilling. But still, it really is invigorating doing that, and then getting out and having a quick shower and getting on with the day.
It's one of those things I have to keep reminding myself that it is invigorating and it's good for me, but I just love a hot shower.
Well, you can have that afterwards.
Technology,
the key is to have someone else to nag you to do it, or so that one doesn't have an excuse.
James, pleasure catching up with you, and I look forward to grabbing a drink and some dinner. But good luck with the podcast with VoiceMap.
Well, we'll see whether
You
whether
don't
it
need me as a
actually
guest.
comes
I'll-
into place, or whether my capacity for that is, or my
Yeah.
talent is limited in that respect. We'll see how we do.
Yeah.
But thank you very much indeed, and it's really nice to catch up with you, Michael.
Cheers, James.
And looking forward to the drink.
Let's go.